Hi there, Laura from Gold Star Work here. Today I'm going to show you how I develop an abstract painting. So today I'm going to show you my process into doing an abstract painting. I'm also going to show you how to make these patterns in the background with plastic wrap. And I'm going to show you how a painting can change through the process and how to go with the flow so that if things aren't working, it's just paint, you can paint over it and try again. So I'm hoping that in this video you'll be able to see how the painting progresses and changes and how I make changes to the painting, and encouraging you to have a look at your paintings, and if they're not working, just keep going and keep painting. Don't give up on them until you get something that you really like and enjoy. So let's get started. So these are the colours that I used for this painting. I used French ultramarine, cerulean blue, cobalt blue hue, phthalo blue, dioxide purple, phthalo turquoise, and then I used the interference paint, the violet, the green and the blue. I used an iridescent medium, tinting white, and a clear painting medium. And you don't need to use any of these interference paints or the iridescent medium. You can do a very successful painting just using the paint and the clear painting medium for glazing. I just decided today I wanted to add that bit of sparkle into my paint. And these are the brushes that I used for this painting. I used this big house painting brush to spread the water and the first washes of colour. And then I used this number 18 flat brush. It's fairly soft for putting on the colour later. And this brush here for spreading on the clear painting medium. I used a number 12 fill bit for highlights and palette knife for highlights. I used a spray bottle of water and some plastic wrap for that plastic wrap effect that I did. This is the kind of plastic wrap that I use to wrap food in because it's easy and convenient and it sticks to the painting quite well. But you can experiment and see what kind of plastic works best for you. And you might find different plastic may give a different pattern. This one gives quite small patterns, but a stiffer plastic would probably give bigger patterns. So just have an experiment and see what works well for the painting you want to do. So I'm just spreading some water on the canvas first of all. I'm getting a little hair off the canvas there. I'm getting some cerulean blue, and I know the top of my painting I want to be lighter than the bottom, so I'm starting off with the lightest blue at the top there. My paint's really watery. I need a really watery mix for the glad wrap effect to work. This paint here is not quite thin enough, so I'm getting get some more water and mix that in with the paint. it was, put some phthalo blue on there, and now I'm using some ultramarine blue. So I'm just covering all the canvas and using various tones of blue and turquoise. I added some more water in my brush. I'm just darkening up the top a little bit with a little bit of phthalo blue. And I'm going to put a bit of purple in the bottom here. Put a bit of purple through the middle, so it's not just in one spot. And it looks like on the video that I'm doing some of my strokes in a curve, but that's just the angle of the camera, I think, because all my strokes on here were all horizontal. And a bit more turquoise through the middle. It'll work fairly quickly because I don't want this paint to dry at all before I get the plastic on here. Adding a bit more colour in the top there. I'm putting in some diagonal lines now, so now I am deliberately putting in a diagonal line. So I've got the colour all on now. I'm going to spray it with some water just to make sure that it stays nice and wet. And now I'm going to get the plastic wrap and I'm going to put it over, and I'm going to bunch it up a little bit as I put it on there so that I can get all the folds and patterns that I want. You haven't got a lot of control about where it goes, but you can direct some of the patterns the way you want. So if I want lots of patterns, I'll bunch it up a lot, and if I don't want too much pattern, I won't have it quite so bunched up. So if I just laid that on flat, you wouldn't get very much pattern at all, and that's why I'm scrunching it up as I put it on there. You see I can lift it up a little bit. You don't want to play with it too much, lifting it up, because you'll disturb all the paint underneath, but you can have a little bit of a play there. So where I think it's too flat and there's not enough pattern, I'm just lifting it up and making sure there's some folds in there and smoothing out the air bubbles. And the last bit of plastic at the bottom. I'm just going to rub it all down and make sure there's no big air bubbles left in it, so that all those lines will show up as the paint dries. So this is all dry now, so I'm going to take the plastic off and see what we've got. A big unveiling. See, it's all dry. There's some interesting patterns going on that I'm now going to build on. So I'm going to come in with my darks and have a look at where I think I can add some darks to enhance that pattern that's going on. I've made up some mix of Prussian blue and burnt sienna and ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and I've got some clear painting medium here, and these are the other colours that I'd already used in the background, but I'm going to use these for my darks, and I might just play around with the colour depending on which colour I'm putting it next to on the picture. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with my Prussian blue mixed with the burnt sienna. And I'm just following the folds that I made with the Glad Wrap, the patterns that the Glad Wrap made. And with a brush with nothing on it, I'm going to use my clear painting medium. And I'm going to use that to smooth out the edges so it doesn't have that hard line in the bottom there. And I'm just going to continue working through where I see I need it, where I want it. So I've just marked in with some chalk where I want my main light areas to go and the flow that I want, so I can make sure that I've got a good flow with the eye coming in and centering on an interesting area of dark and light and then moving out of the picture. So that's what the chalk marks are helping me to do, and I can now continue on with my darks and see where I want those to go. Now I'm going to start putting in some of the lights, and I'm going to just do a lighter version of the colours next to it for a start off. So I'm going to use a light purple that's just tinting white mixed with this purple colour, and I'll do the same with these areas. I'll do the turquoise with a bit of white in it, and I'll just build up the lights gradually, and I'm saving my lightest lights for here, but we'll see how the picture flows and add them as I see I need them. I think I'll change to a round filbert brush. Now I'm following the patterns that the Glad Wrap made. I can start to see some of the pattern that I want, a nice flow going on. So I quite like the way the light comes up and around here, so I'll be emphasising that. I'm going to take this one to art group with me, so I won't be able to film what I'm doing, so I'll tell you what I'll do and I'll take progress photos of it along the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my interference paint out and mix it with some clear painting medium, and I'm going to go over these light areas with the purples and blues and green interference paints. Just very lightly glazing them in, and then I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to go over with another wash of the colours that I used first off and put Glad Wrap over it again, especially in this area here where I've lost some of that interesting pattern by painting over it. And then I'll catch up with you again after that. Okay, I've decided I want to make some changes on this one. I really like the flow of the light around this area. So I'm going to make some changes in that area there. I'm just going to use some white and paint over this area. I want this area here to be nice and light, like it is up the top there. So I'm going to use my lighter blues and my light turquoise for that. I'm going to use really runny paint. I need my paint to be really watery so that it will pick up the patterns from when I put the Glad wrap on the top. So the white was really just there so that I could do the lighter colours and they would show up. It doesn't matter if it looks a bit messy because I'm going to do the Glad wrap on top again. Make sure I get those edges because I don't want white edges coming through. And I'm going to give that a little spray with the water. And then I'm going to get my Glad wrap, and this time instead of going straight across, I'm going to follow my curve with my Glad wrap. Or plastic wrap, saran wrap, whatever you like to call it. Making sure we've got plenty of pattern in there. Then I have to leave that to dry. Okay, let's lift the plastic off and see what we've got here. Although that's been left overnight, it's been fairly cold here and some of that paint's not quite dry, so I'm going to hit it with the hairdryer and just make sure it's dry before I go into the next stage. But you can see all the patterns that the plastic wrap has made in my paint. Now this is the photo that I took that I posted on Instagram, and on the Instagram photo I really liked the way some of the Glad wrap was showing the white on here and making interesting patterns, and that gave me an idea of how I want to do the highlights on this next bit, so the highlights around here. It's already got all these highlights in here that is showing up from around here that I liked, but I also like the way some of these highlights here are showing. So I'm going to include that into my painting. So I've just got some white on my palette knife. Got quite a lot of paint on there to start with, so I'm just dabbing it around. Now if you're having trouble seeing whether you've got enough contrast in your painting, because if all the colours keeps confusing you, you can take a photo of your painting and change it to black and white, and then you can see if you've got enough contrast with your lights and your darks, if it's making an interesting pattern, and that way the colour won't confuse you. You can just see the tones. And what I really wanted to show you is that whatever idea you have in the beginning, it doesn't matter if you change it along the way. You don't have to force the painting into the image in your head. You can just go with the flow and let the painting tell you what it wants to do, and that's perfectly okay. So if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. So I think I'm finished this piece now. If I tilt the camera around a bit, you can see where the light's shining on the interference paint. So it turns out I hadn't finished this picture. I took it home and looked at it for a bit. I decided that there were some parts of it I didn't like and I wanted to change. So I've made some changes and I'm continuing to make changes. And that's okay, that's the beauty of acrylic paint. If you don't like something, you can just keep going over and changing it. Oh, I know eventually I will get to the point where I'm liking what I'm seeing, and then we'll call it finished. But at this stage, I'm still working on it. So here I'm just putting some blue interference paint on. And I've just chalked in a couple of shapes that I want to do. I think I'll get my sponge, a little sea sponge here, and I'm just going to dab it to soften any lines from the brush. And I'm going to use some green interference paint on this one. I'll do a little bit of shading with a very light mixture of the dark. So I've used the dark paint, I've put lots of painting medium in it, because again I want it to be quite transparent and I want the colours underneath to show through. Just adjusting the shape of that top one. going to do another green one here. I'm just mixing a bit of water in with that interference paint to make it a bit more transparent. Don't be afraid to paint over stuff and change things if it's not working for you. As for me, abstract painting is all about play. I do a lot of detailed work in a lot of my other work, so it's nice to just get the paints out and have a play. It's not to say it's any easier to do, because as you can see it's lots of layers and thinking and sorting out what I like and what I don't like. And sometimes you don't know until you've actually tried it to see if it's going to work for you. Take that chalk line out so it doesn't confuse me with highlights. Now do a bit of the purple interference paint for this bottom one here. I'm going to do the purple. I didn't want too much purple in this painting, but a little bit of it seems to be working well. I'm going to continue on with a bit of the dark glaze just to emphasise the shape a bit so I can see it better. But I'm quite liking the really subtle look of it, so I want to make sure that that underneath is still showing through and I get that subtlety still coming through. So I've made another shape in here, which I'm going to do in the blue interference paint. And I may darken that up with some blue paint, but I'm just going to put it in first and see what I think. So again, I'm mixing some water with that because I want to see those under layers coming through. And I'm going to put in the shadow for that one before I decide whether I want to go any darker with that. And I'm going to use some of the iridescent medium on this shape here now. So I'm just going to mix some of that iridescent medium into the clear painting medium. This will lighten it up, so I've decided not to go darker, I decided to go lighter. But it'll add a little bit of sparkle, but you'll still be able to see through at all the layers underneath, as long as I don't put it on too thick. And I'll just do a little bit of sponge work as well. So I'm taking some of that off so that the underlayer shows through a bit more, but not everywhere, just in some spots. And as it dries, it will look less white as well. So we'll dry that off and see what it looks like. So this painting's finally finished. Went through a few lives before I got to something that I was happy with. And I'll just show you how the interference paint is working. So as you move around the painting, those lines will show up a lot more and give a lot more colour than when you're standing straight onto it. So it just gives a little bit of a extra sparkle when you're walking around the painting. So if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And hopefully it'll encourage you to have a go at some abstract painting, have a play, and just keep working on your pictures until you get something you really like. So see you all next week.